Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day wherever you are. Today I'll be showing you how I turned this bedsheet into this dress, so let's get started.
So you need a little break, huh? Boy, say you need a little space, yeah. Boy, is it 'cause you can't be faithful? Boy, hope she's cool, unlike you. You ain't ready for a girlfriend, no. 'Cause you think
These are all the supplies that I used for this project. Fabric of your choice. In my case, I'm going to be using this bedsheet that I got from Primark that didn't fit my bed. Next item is pattern paper, tape measure, straight ruler, curved ruler, pencil or pen, fabric marker, some pins, matching thread, and some scissors. For this project, you're going to need this body measurement, your full bust measurement, your full hip measurement, your shoulder to bust measurement, and your shoulder to desired length. My desired length was from my shoulder to above my knees. I have already marked a straight line down from the edge of my pattern paper, which is 1 inch wide. Then I'm going to mark 1 inch down from the top edge and I will draw a straight line, and this will be my shoulder line. Next, I'm going to be marking 8.5 inches from the shoulder line, which is our shoulder to bust measurement, and I will draw a straight line, and this will be our bust line. Next step, we're going to be marking 34 inches down from the shoulder line, and that will be our shoulder to preferred length of our dress, and I will draw a straight line. From our bust line, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches up, and then I will draw a straight line. Next, I'm going to be marking 8.5 inches on our shoulder line, which is our quarter bust measurement. And on our bust line, I'm also going to mark 8.5 inches, which is our quarter of our bust measurement, and I will repeat the same on this line. On our skirt length line, I'm going to mark my quarter hip measurement, which is 10 inches, and I will mark. On my shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of 8.5 inches, which is 4.25, and I will mark this as my midpoint. And from that midpoint, I'm going to mark 1 inch on each side. From this 1 inch mark, I'm going to connect it to the bust line, and I will draw a straight line. And from the other 1 inch mark, I will connect it to the line above the bust line, and I will draw a straight line, and after that I will use my curved ruler to curve it. On the skirt length line, I'm going to add 3 inches from the 10 inch mark and mark, and then I'm going to connect this with the line above the bust line. Next step, we're going to add 1 inch allowance to the armhole and the sides, and half an inch to the shoulder line, and then we're going to mark this as our front dress, and then we're going to cut this on our fabric on a fold. I'm now going to cut this out with my scissors, and then I will take this front piece to duplicate my back piece. And after duplicating our pattern, please make sure that you don't cut out the back, leave it as it is. So here is our back piece and our front piece, and as you can see, I left the back as it is without cutting. Now we're going to work on our high-low design, and we will start by working on our front piece, and I'm going to mark 5 inches from the center line, and then I'm going to connect that mark to this mark, and then we'll carve it out with a curved ruler, or you can use a freehand. Then we're going to cut this out, and then we're going to keep this aside, and we'll start working on our back piece. For the back piece, I'm going to mark 5 inches down, and then I will draw a line. Then from that mark, I'm going to connect it to here, and then I will carve it out with a curved ruler. Then I'm going to cut it out. Here are our pieces. Our front piece curves up, while our back piece curves down towards the center. Next step, we're going to be making our lining for our dress, and I'm going to trace around the front piece, and I will mark 2 inches down from the bust line, and then that's where our lining will end. To make the straps, I measured along the dress shoulders and I got 2.5 inches, and then I added 1 inch for allowance, so my straps will be 3.5 inches wide and 14 inches long. Next, I'm going to mark 2 inches from this edge, and then you will connect this edge to the 2 inches mark. Then you're going to cut along that line, and you will cut 8 pieces out of your fabric and not 4 pieces. So next step, we're going to be cutting our pattern on fabric, and first I will get rid of this piece out since I'm using my bed sheet. Then I will keep it for later because I'll be using it for my belt. I've already folded my fabric in half, and now I'm going to place the front piece on that fold line, and then I'll pin it and cut it out, and then you're going to repeat the same exact process for our back and lining piece. After cutting, you should have your back piece and front piece which is cut on a fold. You should have 8 pieces of straps and front and back lining which should also be cut on fold. As you can see, I decided to cut my lining to a full length. This is because my fabric was quite see-through. If yours is not, then you can just go ahead and use the smaller version. We are going to start by sewing our straps, and we will take one strap and place it on another straps with the right sides facing each other, and then you will pin and sew along this side, and this side, and you repeat the same exact step on the other straps. Then we are going to sew with a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. After we are done sewing all our straps, we are going to trim down the excess allowance with our scissors, and then we will turn the pieces inside out. After we've turned the pieces inside out, we're going to go ahead and iron them flat. And when we are done, we're going to put this aside and we'll start working on our front and back piece. I'm now going to take my front piece and back piece, and then I'm going to be placing them together like so with the right sides facing each other. I know it's quite hard to tell on this fabric, but if you have a fabric that has both the right and the wrong side, then you should be placing the right sides facing together, and then we will pin and sew along the sides. Then I'm going to repeat the same exact steps on my lining. I'm going to sew the sides with a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I'm going to take my lining like so, and then I'm going to open this to the side, and then I will take one of the straps, and then I'm going to place it this way with this facing that side. I've forgotten to mention that I'm placing the straps on the right sides of the lining, and I'll take this one as well and then place it on the other side like so, and then you're going to repeat the same exact process on the other side. And then we're going to sew along here with a 1/2 inch sewing allowance on all sides. Here I'm going to be pinning my straps away from the edges. This is an important step because you don't want your straps to be sewn together while you're sewing the lining and the main fabric. Next step, we're going to take our main fabric and we're going to be placing it inside our lining with the right sides facing each other, and then we're going to pin along the shoulders and sew with a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I've already pinned the fabric together. Now I'm going to sew around the neckline, the armhole, and then I'm going to repeat the same to the other sides, and I'll be using a 1/2 inch sewing allowance to sew. Sewing, I'm going to cut little snips along the V-neck area on the front and the back of the dress so that our neckline can be able to lay flat. Next, I'm going to turn this piece inside out. This is how our dress looks after we've sewn the main fabric, lining and straps together. Now we are going to put this aside and we'll start working on the ruffles. For the ruffles, I'm marking a piece of fabric that is about 10 inches wide, and the length is my hip measurement multiplied by 2, which is 80. And as I can see, my bedsheet has already been hemmed, so I'm not going to hem it, but if you're working on your fabric, you will need to add 1 inch hemming allowance. Before you proceed to the next step, make sure that you hem your ruffles. Next, we're going to be sewing 2 stitches along here to create the ruffles, and you will need to set your machine to the widest stitch so that you can sew. After sewing, you can see that the fabric is already gathered. Next, we're going to pull the 2 bobbin threads together so that our ruffles can fit the length of our skirt bottom. The next step is attaching our ruffle to the dress, and we will do that by placing our ruffle with the right sides facing each other to the dress, and then we will leave about half an inch allowance at the edge of our ruffles. This is because we will sew the 2 edges together later. Then I'm going to pin and sew all around with a half an inch sewing allowance. The next step is sewing the 2 ends of our ruffles together with the right sides facing each other using a half an inch sewing allowance. Our last step is making our belt, and I'm going to use the piece that I cut down before. I'm going to start by cutting this edge over here. My belt measurement is 6 inches wide and 65 inches long. I'm now going to fold this in half with the right sides facing each other, and then I'm going to mark about 3 inches from this edge. I'm going to draw a line from this end to this mark, and then I will repeat the same on the other belt edge, and after that I'm going to go ahead and cut and sew with a 3/8 of an inch sewing allowance. This is the final look for this dress. Thank you so much guys for watching. I wish you all a wonderful day and God bless. Bye.